The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with worried voices. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their floating chairs, talking in hushed tones about the crisis that threatened to tear apart their peaceful galaxy. Ambassador Kethevara of the Altarian Federation stood at the center podium, her blue skin pale with stress. Her forearms gestured as she spoke to the assembled crowd. The war between the Zephyrian Empire and the Crystalline Hegemony has gone on for 3 years now. 17 star systems have been destroyed. Billions are dead. We must act. The council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the facts. The Zephyrians, with their crystal-hard skin and ability to shoot energy from their hands, had been fighting the Crystalline Hegemony for control of the rich mining worlds in the Outer Rim. The Hegemony fought back with their mind powers, able to read thoughts and move objects without touching them. Both sides were powerful. Both sides were angry. Neither would listen to peace talks. "What do you suggest, Ambassador?" asked Council Leader Vorthak, his tentacles curling with worry. "We have sent our best diplomats. They all failed. The Zephyrians say the Hegemony started the war by stealing their sacred crystals. The Hegemony says the Zephyrians attacked first." Kethevara took a deep breath. "I will go myself. Both fleets are gathering at Nexus Station for what they call the final battle. I will meet them there and try to stop this madness." Murmurs filled the hall. Nexus Station was a massive space station that controlled trade routes between 3 sectors. If the battle happened there, millions of innocent people would die. "You will need protection," said Councillor Brixtall, her insect-like wings buzzing nervously. "Both sides have threatened to kill any peacemakers. You cannot go alone." "I will not go alone," Kethevara replied. "I have already chosen my bodyguard." The hall waited. Everyone expected her to name one of the famous warrior races. Perhaps a Corvan battlemaster with their 6 arms and steel bones, maybe a Thraken berserker who could tear through metal with their claws, or even a sentinel robot with shields that could stop plasma cannons. "I choose Marcus Chen of Earth," Kethevara announced. The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the air recyclers humming. Then the laughter started. "A human?" wheezed Councillor Vorthak. "You want to bring a human to stop a war between the 2 most powerful military forces in the galaxy?" "Ambassador, with respect," said Brixtall, "humans are primitive. They only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They have no energy weapons, no force fields, no psionic abilities. Their bodies are weak. They live for less than 100 years. How can one human protect you from armies?" The laughter grew louder. Some councillors were slapping their desks with whatever appendages they had. The Gorthan representative was making honking sounds that passed for laughter among his people. Kethevara waited for the noise to die down. Her expression never changed. "I have made my choice. Marcus Chen will be my bodyguard. But why?" demanded Council Leader Vorthak. "Explain this madness." "Because," Kethevara said quietly, "sometimes the best weapon is the one nobody expects." 3 days later, Marcus Chen arrived at the council station. He was exactly what everyone expected a human to look like. Average height, brown hair, normal build. Nothing special about him at all. He wore simple black clothing and carried what looked like primitive weapons. Guns that shot metal bullets, not energy beams. The other species watched him walk through the station corridors. Some pointed and whispered, others just stared. A few laughed. Marcus seemed not to notice. He was polite to everyone he met. When the Zephyrian military attaché, Commander Crixith, bumped into him accidentally, Marcus just apologized and kept walking. When the Hegemony observer, mind speaker Velrun, tried to read his thoughts, Marcus simply smiled and said, "Good morning." "I cannot understand his mind," Velrun reported to his superiors later. "It is chaotic, not like other species. Humans think in strange patterns." Commander Crixth was equally puzzled. He shows no fear, but also no aggression. His weapons are toys compared to ours. What game is the ambassador playing? Marcus met with Kethevara in her private quarters. The ambassador looked tired. Her usually bright blue skin had faded to a dull gray. "Thank you for accepting this mission, Mr. Chen," she said. "I know it seems impossible." Marcus sat down across from her. "Ambassador, may I ask why you really chose me? And please don't say it's because I'm unexpected. There has to be more." Kethevara smiled for the first time in days. "You studied both fleets before coming here, didn't you?" "Of course. I read every battle report. I watched recordings of their fights. I analyzed their tactics, their weapons, their command structures. And what did you conclude? Marcus leaned back in his chair. They're both incredibly powerful. Their technology is centuries ahead of Earth's. In a straight fight, either one of them could probably conquer my entire world. Then why do you seem so calm? Because Ambassador, power isn't everything. I've been a soldier for 20 years. I've fought against enemies who were better armed, better trained, and better equipped than my unit. Sometimes we still won. How? By not fighting the way they expected us to fight. Kethvara nodded slowly. That is exactly why I chose you. Do you know what every other species in the galaxy has in common, Mr. Chen? Marcus thought about it. They all evolved on different worlds with different environments. They have different bodies, different abilities, but they all think in patterns, Kethvara interrupted. Logical patterns. Predictable patterns. The Zephyrians always charge straight at their enemies because their crystal skin makes them nearly invulnerable. The hegemony always tries to win by reading minds and predicting what their opponents will do. Every species fights the same way every time, except humans. Except humans. Your people adapt. You change tactics in the middle of battle. You use whatever works, whether it's honorable or not. Most species see this as primitive, but I see it as your greatest strength. Marcus smiled. So what's the plan, Ambassador? We go to Nexus Station. We try to talk peace. And if that fails... She looked at him seriously. I trust you to find a way to stop this war. Even if it means doing something the galaxy won't expect. Especially then. The next morning, their ship left for Nexus Station. As they traveled through hyperspace, news reports showed both fleets gathering. The Zephyrian Empire was bringing 200 ships, each one covered in crystal armor that could deflect any known weapon. The crystalline hegemony was sending 150 vessels, crewed by telepaths who could coordinate perfectly in battle. Military experts across the galaxy were calling it the battle that would end the war. Whoever won would control the outer rim and its valuable resources. None of them mentioned the small diplomatic ship carrying an alien ambassador and her human bodyguard. None of them thought it mattered. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The diplomatic ship Harmony moved quietly through hyperspace toward Nexus Station. Ambassador Kethvara spent most of her time reviewing peace proposals and trade agreements. Marcus Chen spent his time doing something very different. He studied war. The ship's computer held detailed records of every battle between the Zephyrian Empire and the crystalline hegemony. Marcus watched them all. He saw crystal-armored warriors charging through enemy fire, their skin deflecting plasma bolts and laser beams. He watched hegemony ships moving in perfect formation, their crews sharing thoughts to coordinate attacks. Fascinating, he said to himself as he watched a Zephyrian assault on a hegemony mining station. They always do the same thing. Captain Yildara, a tall green-skinned woman from Altair, found him in the ship's data center. Mr. Chen, you have been watching these recordings for 6 hours. Do you not need rest? Marcus looked up from the screen. Captain, can I ask you something? What do you think of human military tactics? Yildara's face showed confusion. I am not sure humans have military tactics. Your species has only fought each other, never in space. Most of your wars used primitive weapons. That's not exactly what I meant. Marcus called up a new file on the screen. This is a battle from Earth's history. 2 armies fought each other at a place called Agincourt. One army had better armor, more soldiers, and stronger weapons. Who won? The weaker army. They changed the rules of how battles were supposed to work. Yildara watched the historical recreation. She saw armored knights charging across a muddy field, only to be stopped by simple wooden spikes and soldiers with basic bows. I do not understand. The knights should have won easily. Should have, yes. But the other army didn't fight the way knights expected them to fight. They made the ground muddy so the heavy armor became a disadvantage. They used weapons that could pierce armor from a distance. They refused to follow the rules of honorable combat. That seems dishonorable. Marcus smiled. To the knights, yes. But the people with the bows were fighting for their homes and families. Honor doesn't matter much when everything you care about is going to be destroyed. Later that day, Ambassador Kethvara joined Marcus for dinner in the ship's small dining room. The food was simple but good, proteins and vegetables that most species could eat safely. How are your studies going? She asked. Interesting. Both sides are incredibly skilled at what they do. The Zephyrians are perfect assault troops. Their crystal skin makes them nearly invincible in close combat. The hegemony's mind powers let them coordinate attacks better than any army in history. But, Marcus took a bite of his food before answering. But they never change. I've watched 50 battles and both sides do exactly the same thing every time. The Zephyrians charge forward and try to overwhelm their enemies with superior firepower. The hegemony tries to predict what their opponents will do and counter it with perfect timing. That sounds like good tactics. Against each other, yes. But what happens when they face an enemy who doesn't fight like anyone else in the galaxy? Kethvara set down her fork. What do you mean? Ambassador, can I ask you something personal? Why did you really choose me for this mission? And please don't say it's because humans are unpredictable. There's something else, isn't there? The ambassador was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. Mr. Chen, how much do you know about my people, the Altarians? Not much. I know you're one of the oldest species in the galaxy. You've been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. We are also dying out, Kethvara said sadly. Our birth rate has been dropping for centuries. We have become too careful, too predictable. We follow the same patterns our ancestors established thousands of years ago. I'm sorry to hear that. You know what I noticed when humans first made contact with the galactic community 50 years ago? Marcus shook his head. Chaos, she said with a small smile. Wonderful, beautiful chaos. Human diplomats would agree to trade deals, then change them completely the next day because they thought of a better way. Human scientists would ignore established research methods and discover things that should have been impossible. Human artists created works that no other species could understand, but everyone wanted to see them anyway. That sounds like us, Marcus admitted. Most species in the galaxy saw this as proof that humans were primitive, but I saw something different. I saw a species that was still growing, still changing, still capable of surprise. And you think that's what this situation needs? Mr. Chen, both the Zephyrians and the hegemony are ancient races. They have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They know every trick, every strategy, every possible way a battle can be won or lost. Traditional diplomacy cannot work because they have already considered every possible compromise and rejected them all. Marcus nodded slowly. So you need someone who doesn't think traditionally. Exactly. I need someone who can look at this situation and see possibilities that neither side has considered. The ship's intercom crackled to life. Ambassador Kethvara to the bridge, please. We are approaching Nexus Station. They made their way to the ship's small bridge. Through the main view screen, they could see Nexus Station growing larger ahead of them. The massive structure was shaped like a wheel, with dozens of docking ports and millions of lights, marking its various sections. But what caught everyone's attention were the two fleets positioned. On opposite sides of the station, the Zephyrian fleet looked like a collection of crystal sculptures floating in space. Each ship was covered in gleaming, translucent armor that sparkled in the light of the nearby star. They moved in tight formations, ready to charge forward at a moment's notice. The hegemony fleet was different. Their ships were smooth and dark, with flowing lines that seemed to shift and change as you watched them. They hung in space like predators waiting to strike, perfectly coordinated in their movements. 200 Zephyrian ships, reported Captain Yildara. 150 hegemony vessels. Both fleets are at full battle readiness. Any sign they've started fighting yet? Asked Kethvara. No, Ambassador. They appear to be waiting for something. Marcus studied the tactical display. They're waiting for the formal challenge. Both sides still follow ancient warrior codes. The battle won't start until their commanders declare their intentions. How do you know that? I've been studying their culture as well as their tactics. The Zephyrians see war as a test of strength and honor. The hegemony views it as a chess match between superior minds. Both sides need to prove they're following the proper forms. That gives us time, said Kethvara. Not much. Once the challenges are issued, the fighting will start within hours. The Harmony was cleared to dock at Nexus Station. As they prepared to disembark, Marcus checked his equipment one last time. He carried 2 sidearms, simple projectile weapons that fired metal bullets. He had a tactical vest with basic armor plating and communication gear. Compared to the advanced technology around him, his equipment looked like something from a museum. Mr. Chen, said Ambassador Kethvara as they walked toward the docking tube. Are you ready for this? Marcus looked out at the 2 massive fleets preparing for war. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, weapons that could destroy planets. Ambassador, he said calmly. I think it's time the galaxy learned something new about humans. What's that? We don't fight fair. And we're very good at winning wars that everyone else thinks are impossible to win. As they stepped onto Nexus Station, neither the Zephyrian Empire nor the crystalline hegemony knew that their ancient war was about to end in a way that nobody could have predicted. They were about to meet humanity's secret weapon, a man who refused to follow anyone else's rules. Nexus Station was huge. Marcus had seen pictures, but walking through its corridors was different. The main hallway was wide enough for 20 people to walk side by side. Shops and restaurants lined both sides, selling goods from across the galaxy. Aliens of dozens of species hurried past, trying to finish their business before the battle started. But everyone was scared. Marcus could see it in their faces, no matter what species they were. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. "The conference room is this way," said Ambassador Kethvara, checking her datapad. "Both sides have already sent their representatives." They walked through the station's diplomatic section. The walls here were white and clean, with symbols from various governments carved into the metal. At the end of the hall was a large door marked with the galactic peace symbol. 2 guards stood outside, one from each fleet. The Zephyrian guard was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with crystal growths covering his skin like natural armor. His companion was smaller, but somehow more intimidating, a hegemony mind speaker whose eyes glowed with purple light. "Ambassador Kethvara of the Altarian Federation," Kethvara announced. "I am here for the peace negotiations." The Zephyrian guard looked down at Marcus. "What is that creature?" "My bodyguard, Marcus Chen of Earth." Both guards stared at Marcus. He stood quietly, hands at his sides, looking completely relaxed. The hegemony mind speaker's eyes glowed brighter as he tried to read Marcus's thoughts. After a moment, he stepped back with a confused expression. "I cannot." "His mind is strange, chaotic, not like other species." "Is there a problem?" asked Kethvara. "No problem," said the Zephyrian guard, though he kept staring at Marcus. "But weapons are not allowed in the conference room." Marcus nodded and began removing his guns. He placed them on a small table beside the door, along with his tactical vest and communication gear. Now he looked even more ordinary, just a human in simple clothes. "Thank you," said the Zephyrian guard, though he still seemed puzzled. The conference room was large and circular, with a table in the center. 3 chairs were arranged around it, one for each delegation. Ambassador Kethvara took her seat. Marcus stood behind her, as a bodyguard should. Across the table sat Admiral Threshka of the Zephyrian Empire. She was even more impressive than her guard, taller with crystal formations that sparkled like diamonds. Her uniform was made of woven metal that clinked softly when she moved. The 3rd chair held Overmind Zalthun of the crystalline hegemony. Unlike the Zephyrians, who looked like living crystal sculptures, the hegemony leader appeared almost human except for his completely black eyes and the way the air seemed to shimmer around him. "Ambassador," said Admiral Threshka, her voice like breaking glass, "we agreed to this meeting out of respect for the Galactic Council, but our position has not changed. The hegemony stole our sacred crystals from the Kethmore system. They must be returned." "The crystals were abandoned," replied Overmind Zalthun, his voice echoing strangely. "Your people left them on dead worlds. We claimed them legally under galactic salvage laws. Dead worlds you made dead with your mind weapons. Worlds you poisoned with your crystal radiation." Marcus watched both leaders carefully. He noticed that they sat the exact same way they had in every other peace meeting for the past 3 years. They used the same words, made the same arguments, showed the same anger. Ambassador Kethvara raised one of her 4 hands. "Please, we are here to find a solution that both sides can accept. Surely there must be some compromise." "No compromise." Admiral Threshka's crystal formations glowed brighter. "The hegemony started this war with treachery. It will end with their defeat." "We did not start anything," said Overmind Zalthun coldly. "Your empire has been expanding into our territory for decades. The crystals were simply the excuse you needed to attack." "Lies. Our expansion was legal under the Treaty of Vorthak, a treaty you forced us to sign under threat of war." Marcus almost smiled. They were following the script perfectly. Every peace negotiation for 3 years had gone exactly like this. Both sides would argue about who started the war, blame the other for various crimes, and eventually storm out to continue fighting. But this time would be different. "Excuse me," Marcus said quietly. The room fell silent. All three aliens turned to stare at him. Did the human just speak? Asked Admiral Threshka. Bodyguards do not speak in formal negotiations, added Overmind Zalthun. Marcus stepped forward slightly. I apologize for interrupting, but I have a question. Ambassador Kethvara looked worried. Mr. Chen, perhaps it's all right, Ambassador. Marcus looked at both military leaders. I was wondering, what happens after you win this war? Admiral Threshka's crystals flared. When we defeat the hegemony, we will reclaim our stolen property and restore honor to our empire. And then what? Then we return to our worlds in victory. Marcus nodded and turned to Overmind Zalthun. And if the hegemony wins? We will expand our borders to include the former Zephyrian territories. Their aggressive expansionism will be ended forever. And then? The Overmind's black eyes narrowed. Then we will have peace. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he began to laugh. It wasn't a mocking laugh or a cruel laugh. It was the sound of someone who had just heard something genuinely funny. Both alien leaders stared at him in shock. You find our sacred cause amusing, primitive? Admiral Threshka's voice was dangerous. Marcus wiped his eyes and smiled at both of them. I'm sorry. It's just, I finally understand what's really happening here. Enlighten us, said Overmind Zalthun, his mental powers reaching out to probe Marcus's mind. Again, you're both going to lose this war. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Explain. Yourself? Demanded Admiral Threshka. Marcus looked directly at her. Admiral, your fleet has 200 ships with the most advanced crystal armor in the galaxy. You've won every battle for the past year. That is correct. And Overmind, your forces have superior coordination and tactical flexibility. Your mind powers give you advantages no other military force can match. Also correct. So why, Marcus asked, have you been fighting for 3 years without either side achieving total victory? Both leaders looked uncomfortable. The enemy is more cunning than expected, said Admiral Threshka. Their defenses are stronger than our initial projections, added Overmind. Zalthun. Marcus shook his head. No, you haven't won because neither of you actually wants to win. The silence that followed was so complete that Marcus could hear the station's air recyclers humming in the walls. That is ridiculous, said Admiral Threshka. Is it, Admiral? If you really wanted to end this war, you could have done it 2 years ago. Your crystal technology gives you weapons that could crack planets, but you only use them on military targets. We are not monsters. We do not kill civilians. Exactly. And Overmind, your people could have used their mind powers to drive the Zephyrian crews insane. But you don't. You only target their military coordination. We follow the laws of civilized warfare. Right again. You're both fighting an honorable war according to galactic conventions. You're both trying to prove you're the better civilization, but you're not trying to actually destroy each other. Marcus walked slowly around the table, his hands behind his back. This isn't really a war. It's a very expensive, very deadly competition. You've turned it into a ritual. You understand nothing about our conflict, said Overmind Zalthun. I understand that both of your species have been fighting wars for thousands of years. You know all the rules. You know how these things are supposed to work. You fight until one side proves they're stronger. Then the weaker side surrenders with honor intact. Yes, said Admiral Threshka. That is how civilized species conduct warfare. Marcus smiled again. But what if someone comes along who doesn't follow those rules? What if someone decides to end your war in a way you never saw coming? Impossible, said both leaders at the same time. Is it? Marcus checked the time display on the wall. Because in about 3 minutes, this war is going to be over. And neither of your fleets is going to win. What are you talking about? Demanded Admiral Threshka. Human, your words make no sense, added Overmind Zalthun. Marcus looked at both of them with something like pity. That's the problem with following the same patterns for thousands of years. You stop seeing the possibilities that exist outside those patterns. He walked back to stand behind Ambassador Kethvara. I told you both the truth. Your war is about to end. You can surrender now and keep some dignity, or you can find out what happens when humans decide to stop a fight. Preposterous. Admiral Threshka stood up, her crystal armor blazing with light. One primitive cannot threaten 2 of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. You're right, Marcus said calmly. One primitive can't threaten your fleets. He smiled. Good thing I'm not alone. Admiral Threshka and Overmind Zalthun stared at Marcus with growing anger and confusion. The human seemed completely calm, even friendly, as if he was discussing the weather instead of threatening two of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. "Human," said Overmind Zalthun, his black eyes focusing intently on Marcus. "I am reading your mind right now. You truly believe what you are saying. But that only proves your species is insane." Marcus nodded. "That's probably true. Most species think humans are crazy. We do things that don't make logical sense, like threatening entire fleets with no weapons and no backup," added Admiral Threshka. "Oh, but I do have backup." Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device about the size of his thumb. "Admiral Overmind, meet my secret weapon." Both alien leaders leaned forward to look at the tiny object. It appeared to be nothing more than a simple communication device. "That is a standard human data recorder," said Overmind Zalthun after scanning it with his mental powers. "It contains no weapons, no explosives, nothing dangerous." "You're absolutely right," Marcus agreed. "It's just a recorder. But sometimes information is the most dangerous weapon of all." He activated the device. A small red light began blinking. "Recording activated. This is Marcus Chen, Human Military Advisor, documenting tactical assessment of Zephyrian and Hegemony forces for Earth Defense Command." Admiral Threshka's crystal formations dimmed. "Earth Defense Command? Your planet has no military worth mentioning. Actually, we have a very small military. Only about 50 million active personnel across all branches. Tiny compared to your forces." "Then what?" Marcus continued speaking into the recorder. "Assessment begins. Zephyrian Empire weakness identified. Crystal hull composition becomes brittle when exposed to harmonic frequencies at 847.3 terahertz. This frequency can be generated using modified civilian communication arrays." The room went dead silent. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Threshka. "Our crystal armor is impervious to all known weapons." "To all known weapons, yes," Marcus agreed. "But humans specialize in unknown weapons. We've been analyzing wreckage from your battles for 2 years." Overmind, Zalthun's mental probe intensified, trying to break through Marcus's mental defenses. "You are bluffing. Even if such a frequency existed, you have no way to generate it on a scale large enough to affect our fleets." Marcus smiled and continued his recording. "Crystalline hegemony weakness identified. Psionic coordination network creates cascade feedback when exposed to chaotic quantum interference patterns. These patterns can be generated using standard human computer systems operating in controlled random mode." "That is ridiculous," said Overmind Zalthun, but his voice now carried a note of worry. "Both weaknesses have been confirmed through field testing on salvaged equipment. Recommended implementation: immediate coordinated broadcast from all human vessels currently in the Nexus Station vicinity." Admiral Threshka stood up so quickly her chair fell over. "There are no human warships here. We would have detected them." "You're right, no warships." Marcus checked his watch. "But there are 17 human civilian vessels within broadcast range. Cargo ships, passenger transports, even a few pleasure craft, all equipped with standard communication arrays and computer systems. Civilian ships cannot threaten military fleets," protested Admiral Threshka. Marcus looked at her with something like sympathy. "Admiral, that's the difference between humans and everyone else in the galaxy. You see civilian ships and think harmless. We see civilian ships and think additional resources." He spoke into the recorder again. "All human vessels. This is authorization code 77 Alpha. Begin broadcasting protocol harmonic lance on my mark." Overmind. Zalthun's eyes blazed with purple light as he tried to scan the area around Nexus Station. "I detect. Yes, there are human ships in the area, but they are just merchants and tourists." "Overmind, may I ask you something? In all your years of studying other species, have you ever known humans to separate their civilians from their military the way other species do?" The alien leader's face went pale. "You cannot mean." "Every human ship captain in the galaxy holds a reserve commission in Earth Defense Command. Every human merchant vessel carries concealed military-grade sensors and communication equipment. Every human tourist has basic military training. Marcus held up the recorder. We've been watching your war for 3 years, learning, studying, preparing. Did you really think we came out here just to sell Earth coffee and watch the pretty explosions? Admiral Threshka's crystal armor began to flicker as panic set in. This is impossible. The Galactic Council has laws about military involvement by neutral species. The Council has laws about neutral species joining wars, Marcus corrected. They don't have laws about neutral species defending themselves. And right now I'm classifying both your fleets as threats to human civilians in the area. Ambassador Kethavara spoke for the first time since Marcus had started talking. Mr. Chen, surely there's another way. There was, Ambassador. These two could have accepted peace. Instead, they chose to start their final battle with millions of innocent people nearby. Marcus looked at both military leaders. That makes it our problem now. You are bluffing, said Overmind Zalthun, but his voice shook slightly. Marcus spoke into the recorder. All units begin harmonic lance transmission in 60 seconds. Throughout the Nexus Station area, 17 human ships began powering up their communication arrays. The cargo vessel Iron Horse adjusted its broadcast frequency. The passenger liner Wandering Star synchronized its computer systems. Even the small pleasure craft Sunday Morning turned its recreational sensors toward the massive alien fleets. On both flagships, alien technicians began detecting strange signals. Admiral, called the Zephyrian sensor officer, we're picking up some kind of harmonic transmission from the human civilian ships. The frequency is what? Demanded Admiral Threshka. It's exactly 847.3 terahertz, ma'am. How did they know our crystal resonance frequency? On the Hegemony command ship, similar alarms were sounding. Overmind, the human vessels are generating quantum interference patterns. The chaos it's disrupting our coordination network. Marcus checked his watch again. 30 seconds. Stop this madness. Admiral Threshka slammed her fist on the table. Even if your primitive tricks work, you cannot defeat both our fleets. Admiral, I don't want to defeat your fleets. I want to disable them. There's a difference. What difference? Defeated fleets get destroyed. Disabled fleets get to go home and think about what they've learned. Overmind, Zalthun tried one more mental assault on Marcus's mind, putting all his power into breaking through the human's defenses. For a moment, he touched something that made him recoil in shock. Your mind. It's not just chaotic. It's deliberately chaotic. You've trained yourself to think in patterns no telepath can follow. 20 years of military service teaches you useful skills, Marcus replied. 15 seconds. Please. Admiral Threshka's crystal armor was now flickering rapidly. Our fleets represent thousands of years of military tradition, and they'll continue to represent that tradition, Marcus said gently. Just somewhere else. 10 seconds. Both alien leaders looked at Ambassador Kethavara desperately. Ambassador, surely you cannot allow this violation of galactic law. Kethavara looked at them sadly. Gentlemen, you had 3 years to make peace. You chose war instead. Now you get to see what happens when humans decide to enforce peace. Marcus raised the recorder. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. He pressed a button. All units. Execute harmonic lance. Execute quantum cascade. End this war. Across the battlefield, 17 human civilian ships began broadcasting signals that no one in the galaxy had ever thought to use as weapons. And in the space of 3 minutes, a war that had lasted 3 years came to an end. The effects began immediately. On the screens in the conference room, everyone could see both fleets through Nexus Station's external cameras. The Zephyrian ships, with their beautiful crystal armor, began to develop hairline cracks across their hulls. The harmonic frequency from the human civilian vessels was making their crystalline structure vibrate at exactly the wrong frequency. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, came a panicked voice over Admiral Threshka's communicator. Crystal matrix failure spreading through the armor plating. Impossible. The Admiral gasped, but she could see the truth on the screens. Her mighty fleet was falling apart, not from weapons fire but from simple sound waves. The hegemony ships were having different problems. Their crews, who normally shared thoughts perfectly, suddenly found their minds filled with chaos. The quantum interference patterns from the human computers were scrambling their telepathic networks. "Overmind," called a voice from Zalthun's fleet. "We cannot coordinate. The mental link is breaking down. Ships are colliding because pilots cannot sense each other's intentions." Overmind Zalthun stared at Marcus with something approaching respect mixed with horror. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the first day humans encountered both your species," Marcus replied calmly. "We've been studying every alien technology we could find, looking for weaknesses. Not because we wanted to conquer anyone, but because we wanted to be ready if someone tried to conquer us." "But these are civilian ships," protested Admiral Threshka. "They should not have military capabilities." Marcus looked at her with genuine confusion. "Admiral, why would we build ships that can't defend themselves? That would be like sending people into space with no way to get home. Because that is how civilized species operate. We separate civilian and military functions." "Well, that's your first mistake right there." Ambassador Kethvara was watching the displays with amazement. The most powerful war fleets in the galaxy were being disabled by cargo haulers and passenger ships. "Mr. Chen, what exactly are your people doing to them?" "Nothing permanent, Ambassador. The harmonic frequency will stop affecting the crystal hulls as soon as we stop broadcasting. The quantum interference will clear up once we shut down our computers. Both fleets will be able to repair their ships and go home." "But why disable them at all?" asked Overmind Zalthun. "What do you gain from this?" Marcus sat down in a chair across from both military leaders. "Overmind, what I gain is peace. What humanity gains is the knowledge that we can defend ourselves if we need to. This is treachery." Admiral Threshka's crystal formations were flickering weakly. "You attacked without warning." "No, Admiral. I gave you warning. I told you exactly what was going to happen. You chose not to believe me." Marcus activated his recorder again, recording supplemental notes. "Both enemy fleets have been successfully disabled with 0 casualties. Repeat, 0 casualties. No ships destroyed, no personnel killed or permanently injured." "Why does that matter?" asked Admiral Threshka. "Because, Admiral, humans don't actually like killing people. We're very good at it when we have to be, but we prefer other solutions." Overmind Zalthun was studying Marcus carefully. "Your mind. Even now, with victory achieved, you show no pride, no satisfaction in defeating us. Why?" Marcus shrugged. "Because this wasn't about defeating you. This was about stopping a war that was getting innocent people killed." The conference room's communication system crackled to life. "This is Nexus Station Control to all vessels. We are receiving surrender requests from both fleets. They are asking for assistance with repairs and safe passage to neutral space." Ambassador Kethvara looked at Marcus. "What now, Mr. Chen?"
"Now we help them fix their ships and go home." Marcus stood up and walked to the window.
Outside, the disabled fleets drifted helplessly, but human rescue ships were already moving toward them. "And then we have a conversation about how things are going to work from now on." "What do you mean?" asked Admiral Threshka. Marcus turned back to face both alien leaders. "I mean that the galaxy just learned something new about humans. We don't fight fair. We don't follow the established rules of warfare. And we can disable the most advanced military forces in known space using civilian equipment." "Are you threatening the entire galaxy?" demanded Overmind Zalthun. "No. I'm telling you that the galaxy now has a new option when conflicts arise. Instead of letting wars drag on for years, you can call Earth. We'll send someone to stop the fighting. And if we refuse this assistance," Marcus smiled, "then you'll find out what other tricks we've learned by studying alien technology. Trust me, the harmonic frequency and quantum interference were the gentle options." Ambassador Kethvara cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should discuss the terms of the peace treaty?" For the next 2 hours, they negotiated. The terms were surprisingly fair. The Zephyrian Empire would keep the crystal mines they had controlled before the war. The crystalline hegemony would receive compensation for the damage to their territory. Both sides would withdraw to their original borders, but the most important part of the treaty was the new clause about human involvement in galactic conflicts. "Earth will establish a conflict resolution service," read Ambassador Kethvara from the final document. "Any species experiencing prolonged warfare may request human intervention. Earth reserves the right to end conflicts using any methods deemed necessary, with the understanding that human forces will attempt to minimize casualties." "This is blackmail," said Admiral Threshka. But she signed the treaty anyway. This is evolution, corrected Marcus. The galaxy is changing. Wars that used to last for decades can now be ended in minutes. That's good for everyone. As both fleets limped away from Nexus Station with human escort ships helping them with repairs, Overmind Zalthun asked Marcus one final question. Human, your species has only been in space for 50 years. How did you become so effective at warfare so quickly? Marcus thought about it for a moment. Overmind, can I tell you something about human history? Please. We've been fighting wars on our home planet for thousands of years. Not against one or two enemies, but against dozens of different civilizations with completely different fighting styles. We learned to adapt because we had to. Every time we thought we understood warfare, someone would invent a new way to fight. I see. When we came out into space and saw how other species fought, we realized something interesting. Everyone else fights the same way their ancestors did thousands of years ago. You all perfected your techniques and then stopped innovating. And humans continued to innovate. Humans never stop innovating. It's what we do. 5 minutes after we figure out the best way to do something, we start looking for a better way. Overmind Zalthun was quiet for a long moment. That is a terrifying thought. Only if you want to fight us, Marcus replied. If you want to be friends, it's actually pretty useful. 6 months later, Earth's Conflict Resolution Service ended a border dispute between the Corvin Alliance and the Thraken Confederacy in 47 minutes. A year after that, they stopped a three-way war in the Outer Rim using nothing but modified entertainment broadcasts and some creative computer programming. The galaxy learned to call Earth when diplomacy failed and warfare went on too long. It was faster, cheaper, and much less destructive than traditional military solutions. And Marcus Chen became the most famous human in galactic history, though he never seemed particularly happy about it. I just wanted to stop people from killing each other, he told a reporter years later. Turns out humans are really good at that. 2. The war between the Zephyrian Empire and the Crystalline Hegemony had lasted 3 years and cost billions of lives. It ended in 3 minutes because one human refused to follow the rules that everyone else thought were unbreakable, and the galaxy was never quite the same after that.